Look at your own hands. Right now, your brain is quietly doing dozens of bizarre things that the smartest scientists on Earth cannot decode. We pretend biology is a perfectly solved puzzle, but the terrifying truth is you are walking around in a deeply confused vessel. Here are 101 weird, shocking, and totally unexplained things your body does that make zero medical sense. 1. Right as you drift off to sleep, your whole body violently kicks for absolutely no reason. That is a hypnic jerk. The leading theory is your brain thinks your relaxed muscles mean you are dying and shocks you awake. Your own head is practically swatting you out of bed. 2. Contagious yawning is a biological mind trick that forces you to copy the tired guy sitting next to you. It has absolutely nothing to do with needing oxygen. It is actually a primitive pack bonding reflex. Your brain sees someone running a thermal cooling cycle for their head and aggressively makes you mirror them. 3. Evolution really dropped the ball with hiccups. They serve absolutely zero modern biological purpose. Some weirdly specific researchers claim it is a leftover neurological glitch from millions of years ago when our ancestors breathed through gills. The next time you eat bread too fast, remember you are part amphibian. 4. Crying over a sad movie produces a completely different chemical tear than when you are just chopping onions. Emotional tears actually contain high levels of stress hormones. We just developed a highly visible biological alert system to show predators exactly when we are emotionally devastated. 5. Try explaining why 90% of humans are strictly right-handed. There is no isolated genetic switch that makes lefties so unbelievably rare. For some bizarre reason, your central nervous system just blindly promoted one arm to management and left the other as an unpaid intern. 6. Your appendix is essentially a ticking time bomb sitting quietly in your gut. For decades, surgeons called it totally useless evolutionary trash. Now, some modern biologists think it acts as a safe house for good bacteria. Good luck proving that before the thing decides to randomly explode. 7. Blushing is the only physical mechanism in the human body designed specifically to humiliate you in public. When embarrassment hits, your blood vessels violently expand to broadcast exactly how guilty or shy you feel. Evolution essentially installed a mandatory built-in lie detector directly into your cheeks and completely forgot to give you an off switch. 8. Go ahead and try to tickle yourself. Your brain perfectly anticipates the exact movement and totally cancels the sensation. But the second someone else pokes your ribs, you lose your mind. A perceived physical threat triggering uncontrollable joyful laughter instead of a massive punch is completely absurd. 9. Giving a sick guy a totally fake sugar pill sometimes magically cures his actual illness. The placebo effect is the medical community's biggest open secret. Belief alone physically alters cellular biology, and your brain essentially runs a completely unlicensed underground pharmacy without sharing the blueprints. 10. An amputated leg can still hurt incredibly badly. Phantom limb syndrome totally breaks logical science. Medical experts struggle to effectively treat burning pain in a body part that is currently sitting in a biohazard bin. The brain simply refuses to update its spatial map and screams at empty air. 11. Passing out for 8 hours every single night in a wild environment full of hungry predators is evolutionary suicide. Yet we absolutely have to sleep. While it obviously rests the body, we simply accept this mandatory daily coma without fully decoding the core biological necessity behind it. 12. You hallucinate wildly vividly every single night, and we just call it dreaming. Psychologists claim you are processing deep trauma, while neurologists insist it is just random electrical static. The terrifying truth is that nobody actually understands the physical function of these mandatory late-night brain movies. 13. Crossing a threshold into a new room and instantly forgetting your entire life mission is famously called the doorway effect. Neurologists believe physical boundaries act as hard resets for short-term memory. Your highly advanced brain literally dumps your current objective in the trash just because you walked past wood. 14. Walking into bright sunlight makes about 30% of the population violently sneeze. Photic sneezers possess a completely absurd neurological crossover. Light hitting your optic nerve somehow triggers an explosive reaction in your nasal cavity. The wiring got crossed during assembly and nobody can fix the short circuit. 15. Tiny ridges on your fingers make you completely identifiable to police. The old grip theory took a massive hit when tests showed fingerprints might actually reduce friction on smooth surfaces. Evolution essentially gave us permanent built-in ID cards and aggressively refused to leave an instruction manual. 16. Evolution gave humans 4 completely incompatible blood types for absolutely zero functional reason. If a doctor pumps the wrong one into your arm, your own immune system will violently destroy your organs. This massive biological design flaw offers no daily survival advantage but guarantees that finding an emergency donor is a total nightmare. 17. Mashing your face against someone and swapping a million bacteria is objectively disgusting. Yet humans are virtually the only mammals that romantically kiss. Anthropologists fight constantly over how this became our universal sign of deep affection. Your biology is just wildly enthusiastic about sharing weird microscopic mouth germs. 18. Sitting in a bathtub turns your fingers into terrifying little raisins. We used to think it was just skin acting like a sponge. Now researchers know it is a highly coordinated involuntary nervous system reaction. They assume it gave cavemen better grip on wet rocks, but the debate continues. 19. Sometimes terminal cancer just vanishes overnight without a single drop of medicine. Spontaneous remission is the ultimate miracle that makes clinical researchers deeply uncomfortable. The immune system suddenly wakes up, flips a secret switch, and eats the disease. Nobody knows the password to manually activate this self-destruct code. 20. The weird sinking feeling in your stomach before bad news is literally a second brain talking. Your gut packs millions of complex neurons directly into its lining. When you feel pure dread down there, it is your digestive tract sending advanced warning signals that we cannot fully translate yet. 21. Staring at an unbelievably adorable puppy can actually make human beings want to physically crush it. Psychologists call this cute aggression. Your brain simply cannot safely process extreme adorableness. It gets dangerously overloaded with pure positive emotion and violently panics, tossing in aggressive impulses just to balance out the chemical scales. 22. Read the word yawn and you will probably do it right now. Contagious yawning is basically a biological mind control trick. It is heavily tied to social empathy and pack bonding, but the exact neurological trigger is still heavily debated. You are just legally required to copy tired people. 23. Your cells somehow know exactly what time it is in pitch darkness. The circadian rhythm dictates every hormone drop perfectly on schedule. We know a tiny cluster of brain cells runs the show, but the extreme precision of this internal clock remains a massive biological flex. 24. Waking up totally conscious while a demon sits on your chest is just a fun Tuesday for some people. Sleep paralysis happens when your mind boots up before unlocking your muscles. The mechanics make sense, but the brain defaulting to generating absolute nightmare fuel during the glitch is unhinged. 25. Some incredibly rare people remember exactly what they ate on a random Tuesday 20 years ago. Highly superior autobiographical memory breaks all rules of mental storage. Their mental hard drives simply lack a delete button, and we have absolutely no clue how they maintain the unlimited storage space. 26. That sudden terrifying needle pain in your chest that vanishes when you breathe deeply is completely harmless. Pre-cordial catch syndrome constantly tricks healthy people into thinking they are dying. The best guess is a pinched nerve rubbing against a rib. Your chest just loves faking absolute emergencies. 27. Whispering closely into a microphone gives millions of people intense, euphoric scalp tingles. ASMR totally confuses the clinical world. Brain scans show massive activity when people hear tapping sounds, but the reason only a random fraction of humanity possesses this bizarre physical reaction remains highly elusive. 28. Fluffing up your body hair keeps you warm and makes you look massive to an attacking bear. Goosebumps are great for wolves, but completely useless for hairless modern humans. We kept these tiny muscle reflexes millions of years after we lost our thick winter coats for no logical reason. 29. Your auditory cortex will aggressively loop a terrible pop song chorus for 3 days straight. Getting an earworm is a biological glitch that forces you to host a mental radio station against your will. We can track the brain loop, but we cannot install a volume knob. 30. Pregnant women literally absorb stem cells from their unborn babies. Fetal microchimerism means microscopic pieces of your child migrate into your brain and heart and stay there for decades. Science is heavily divided on whether these invading cells actively repair the mother or trigger weird autoimmune diseases later. 31. You feel someone staring at the back of your head and turn around to catch them perfectly. The gaze detection system borders on low-tier psychic ability. Controlled lab tests constantly argue if it is actually real, but your raw instincts swear you can physically feel invisible attention. 32. Quitting certain medications or staying awake for 3 days can trigger explosive electrical shocks inside your actual skull. Brain zaps are reported by millions but remain totally invisible. No MRI or brain scan has ever caught one happening, making it a completely undocumented internal lightning storm. 33. Roommates supposedly sync up their menstrual cycles after a few months. Modern statistics aggressively call the McClintock effect a total myth, but endless women swear it is absolute reality. If secret human pheromones are actually coordinating this biological schedule, researchers cannot manage to isolate them in a lab. 34. A completely average mother can suddenly deadlift a burning car off her child. Hysterical strength is an emergency override that defies standard physics. Adrenaline is obviously involved, but the way muscles suddenly smash past their absolute structural limits without completely tearing the tendons off the bone is terrifying. 35. Exploding head syndrome involves waking up to a totally painless but deafening bomb blast inside your mind. Neurologists chalk it up to a sensory misfire during the delicate transition into deep sleep. The specific trigger that pulls the pin on this terrifying fake grenade is totally unknown. 36. Nocturnal penile tumescence happens to perfectly healthy guys every single night regardless of what they are dreaming about. Morning wood is an involuntary hardware diagnostic check while you sleep. Medical texts assume it prevents tissue atrophy, but the aggressively rigid scheduling of this biological pop-up is wildly bizarre. 37. Giving up on a massive puzzle and going to sleep often results in waking up with the perfect solution. Unconscious problem-solving proves your sleeping brain is significantly smarter than your waking one. Your subconscious flawlessly organizes complex logic while you are actively drooling on a pillow. 38. In extreme danger, your brain might choose to totally paralyze you instead of fighting or running. Tonic immobility is basically playing dead. We understand a possum doing this, but freezing up while a massive truck is speeding toward you is a wildly counterproductive human survival tactic. 39. Chugging a slushie triggers rapid blood vessel changes in the roof of your mouth. For some insane reason, the central nervous system interprets this cold throat as a massive stabbing headache. Brain freeze is basically a completely broken fire alarm going off in the penthouse when the basement is cold. 40. Banging your unprotected ulnar nerve against a table sends a sickening wave of unique tingling agony down your arm. The funny bone is the biggest anatomical design flaw in the human body. Leaving our most sensitive wire completely exposed on a joint we constantly smash into things is purely ridiculous. 41. Lying down to sleep and suddenly feeling invisible, bugs crawling deep inside your muscles is a living nightmare. Restless leg syndrome creates a violent, uncontrollable urge to kick. Dopamine imbalances are heavily suspected, but your legs randomly deciding to run a marathon at midnight remains a massive clinical headache. 42. Your brain paralyzes your limbs during sleep so you do not act out your dreams. Yet somehow it totally forgets to unplug the vocal cords. Sleep talking ranges from weird mumbles to aggressive full-volume arguments. Your subconscious occasionally just decides to host an open mic night in the dark. 43. Staring at a bright blue sky reveals tiny transparent worms drifting across your vision. Eye floaters are just small protein clumps casting shadows directly onto your retina. We understand the mechanics perfectly, but the reason some people have thousands while others enjoy absolute HD vision remains totally random. 44. Complete silence is sometimes interrupted when one of your ears suddenly rings, at a deafening high pitch, goes totally numb, and then magically resets. Transient ear noise is a universal biological glitch totally unrelated to hearing damage. Your internal audio drivers essentially crash run a forced 10-second reboot and just pretend absolutely nothing happened. 45. Severe mineral deficiencies make some pregnant women violently crave eating literal driveway dirt or raw clay. This wild condition is called pica. The human brain instinctively calculating that consuming a handful of toxic playground sand will somehow perfectly balance out complex internal iron levels is a bizarre software patch. 46. Lock someone in a totally dark, silent room and their brain will quickly start inventing things. Sensory deprivation forces the mind to aggressively hallucinate. The brain absolutely refuses to enjoy pure silence and instead actively defaults to rendering terrifying voices and monsters out of thin air. 47. Lightly tearing your own skin with your fingernails feels absolutely incredible. Scratching an itch causes tiny amounts of pain that distract the brain while flooding your system with highly addictive serotonin. Human biology aggressively rewards us with immense pleasure for inflicting minor self-damage. 48. Getting a massive violent shiver down your spine when the room is totally warm is bizarre. People call it someone walking over your grave. It is likely a temporary total misfire in the core temperature regulation center. Your brain just randomly decides you are freezing to death for exactly 2 seconds. 49. Once you actively think about it, your tongue suddenly feels massive and totally awkward. Try to find a comfortable resting spot for it right now. Conscious awareness totally disrupts the automatic perfect resting posture of our facial muscles. Enjoy being hyper-aware of the giant slug in your mouth. 50. Your internal clock waking you up exactly 1 minute before a blaring alarm is a massive flex. Your body anticipates the upcoming stress and pumps out hormones for a smooth wake-up. The absolute pinpoint microscopic precision of this biological timing without ever checking a watch is highly impressive. 51. Walking into a totally new building and knowing exactly what someone is about to say is pure déjà vu. The prevailing theory is a minor brain glitch that accidentally files the current moment directly into long-term memory. You are essentially remembering the present slightly before you experience it. 52. Staring directly at your best friend and suddenly feeling like they are a total stranger is called jamais vu. It is the terrifying opposite of déjà vu. Deeply ingrained emotional familiarity is suddenly wiped clean for 60 seconds, and we are totally clueless about what causes this temporary erasure. 53. Knowing exactly what a word means, and its starting letter but being completely unable to say it, is infuriating. Lethologica happens when the brain completely blocks a single file retrieval. The memory system perfectly isolates and locks away one specific word while the rest of your vocabulary works totally fine. 54. Tasting copper. When you see the number 5 is a real neurological condition called synesthesia. People literally hear shapes or smell colors. The sensory wires in the brain are physically crossed and bleeding into each other. The root cause of this permanent psychedelic biological crossover is still fiercely debated. 55. Having a terrible day at work and instantly breaking out in massive red welts makes zero logical sense. Stress hives prove your body treats emotional anxiety the exact same way it treats a deadly peanut allergy. The chemical bridge that turns a bad mood into aggressive skin inflammation is wild. 56. A swift kick to the groin sends paralyzing pain straight up into a man's actual stomach. The nerves formed up high in the abdomen during fetal development before dropping down. Millions of years of evolution totally failed to rewire the pain receptors to match the current plumbing layout. 57. Slice 2 guys' arms exactly the same way, and one heals in 3 days while the other takes weeks. The extreme variance in human cellular regeneration makes absolutely no sense. Decoding the specific genetic factors that gift random people with a hyperactive Wolverine-style healing factor is still ongoing. 58. Pain tolerance is completely arbitrary. One person cries over a paper cut while another walks on a broken ankle. The nervous system interprets trauma differently based on genetics, but mapping exactly why some humans are born with a biological volume knob turned permanently down to 0 remains a massive challenge. 59. You are born with random permanent discoloration patches on your skin, and we just call them birthmarks. They are technically benign cellular overgrowths, but there is zero explanation for what dictates their wild shapes or random locations. They are just biological tattoos with absolutely no inherent meaning. 60. Chugging ice water too fast can trigger a massive painful spasm deep in your chest and throat. This is completely separate from brain freeze. The massive vagus nerve likely gets temporarily shocked by the sudden extreme temperature drop, resulting in a completely hysterical bodily overreaction to basic hydration. 61. Your eyes see a stationary boat cabin, but your inner ear feels the violent ocean waves. This sensory conflict causes aggressive motion sickness. We completely understand the confusing signals. The weird part is the brain deciding that violently vomiting your lunch is the only logical solution to this problem. 62. Spinning in circles violently throws off the fluid in your inner ear. The mechanics of getting dizzy are simple physics. What totally baffles psychologists is why human toddlers aggressively seek out this feeling. We are the only species that actively spins around just to enjoy temporary catastrophic sensory failure. 63. At 20 years old, you can drink toxic amounts of alcohol and wake up totally refreshed. By 32 beers will completely ruin your entire weekend. Liver enzymes degrade obviously, but the exact aggressive cellular mechanism that destroys our alcohol processing plants so violently with age is brutal. 64. Around 2 in the afternoon, an overwhelming wave of exhaustion hits almost everyone. The afternoon slump is a documented natural dip in your daily circadian rhythm. Human evolution actively programming a forced emergency shutdown right in the exact middle of peak daylight hunting hours is a massive design flaw. 65. Standing up fast and having your vision instantly go totally black is a wild experience. Orthostatic hypotension happens when gravity violently pulls your blood down. We obviously know the physics, but your body's highly advanced pressure regulators occasionally just forgetting to do their one specific job is terrifying. 66. That distinct smell in a nursing home is a totally real chemical compound called nonanol. Your body just naturally starts producing it as you get older. Medical science has isolated the exact molecule, but evolution, deciding humans must emit a distinct warning scent past the age of 60 is hilarious. 67. Waking up drenched in sweat in a freezing cold room with zero fever is incredibly frustrating. Night sweats ruin sheets globally. Blood panels usually find absolutely nothing wrong. Your body just spontaneously decides to run an aggressive extreme cooling simulation at 3 in the morning for fun. 68. You look down at your thigh and find a massive purple bruise with totally zero memory of hitting a table. Spontaneous bruising happens to everyone. We vaguely blame fragile capillaries, but your blood vessels occasionally just exploding from the sheer exhausting stress of existing is a very relatable concept. 69. Suddenly smelling burning rubber or rotting meat that nobody else can detect is terrifying. Phantosmia is a completely internal olfactory hallucination. Your brain is aggressively lying to you about your environment. Generating horrible fake air fresheners straight out of thin air is a terrible neurological prank. 70. Waking up from a deep sleep and trying to answer your digital clock like it is a ringing phone is pure sleep drunkenness. Your cognitive skills are completely wrecked. The transition out of deep sleep takes so agonizingly long to reboot basic logic that you temporarily become a total idiot. 71. The sudden violent full-body urge to stretch your limbs is called pandiculation. It is an incredibly satisfying and almost completely involuntary command. It likely resets muscle tension perfectly, but the aggressive neurological trigger that forces you to stretch right now or lose your mind is incredibly demanding. 72. Pregnancy brain literally shrinks gray matter. Expecting mothers suffer severe memory loss and totally forget basic words. Biologists theorize the brain is aggressively rewiring itself for maternal attachment, but it genuinely feels like the baby is just slowly draining your cognitive function straight out of your skull. 73. Just like your hands, one of your eyeballs is completely dominant over the other. Point at something and close one eye to see reality violently jump to the side. Ocular dominance creates perfect depth perception. But the biological coin toss that decides which eye gets to be the boss is entirely random. 74. Postprandial somnolence hits hard after a massive meal. Your body aggressively reroutes huge amounts of blood to your digestive tract, causing extreme brain fatigue. Biologists still passionately debate why processing a basic turkey dinner requires the immediate complete shutdown of your higher cognitive functions. 75. A sudden, overwhelming feeling that you are absolutely about to drop dead is a highly documented medical symptom. A sense of impending doom occasionally precedes actual heart attacks, but other times your brain just randomly decides to chemically manufacture pure, unadulterated psychic terror completely out of thin air just to keep you on your toes. 76. Surviving absolute horror often results in the brain completely deleting the event from your conscious memory. Dissociative amnesia is a desperate psychological survival tool. The mind locks the files away tight, but finding the physical vault is impossible. Your brain successfully formats its own hard drive to save your life. 77. Waking up to find everything tastes exactly like wet cardboard is a bizarre phenomenon. Sudden temporary ageusia usually vanishes in 3 days. It gets waved away as a minor viral nerve glitch, but the human tongue occasionally just unplugging its flavor sensors and rebooting is totally wild. 78. While you catch 3 horrific flus every single winter, some people go literally decades without a single sniffle. These super-immune humans walk among us completely untouched. Genetics play a massive role, but their white blood cells essentially operate like an elite, heavily funded military squad with unlimited ammo. 79. You want to completely intimidate someone in an argument, but your intense anger triggers violent, uncontrollable sobbing instead. Crying when furious ruins everything. The emotional control center totally crashes because it cannot distinguish between extreme rage and deep sadness, so it just presses the default panic button and leaks. 80. Olympic sprinters are constantly caught aggressively yawning right before a massive, terrifying race. It has absolutely zero to do with being tired. It is a completely involuntary physical attempt to forcefully regulate extreme nervous system spikes. Your brain uses a yawn to manually reset a wildly panicked heart rate. 81. You can literally hear the difference between pouring boiling water and freezing cold water while totally blindfolded. Molecular viscosity actually changes the acoustic pitch of the liquid. Human hearing, naturally evolving to be incredibly highly sensitive to the temperature of falling water, is an oddly specific survival trait. 82. Eating shrimp happily for 40 years and then suddenly going into severe anaphylactic shock is a terrifying medical mystery. Late-onset allergies completely break the rules. The biological security guard suddenly flags a safe protein as a deadly enemy and flips out decades late without any clear provocation. 83. Tell a patient a fake sugar pill will cause severe nausea and they will likely violently throw up. The nocebo effect is the placebo's evil twin. Your absolute belief in a totally fake side effect literally manifests the physical symptoms. Your brain can actively poison your own stomach via suggestion. 84. Being completely exhausted all day only to get a massive burst of hyperenergy at midnight is infuriating. The infamous second wind usually hits when you finally try to sleep. Random late-night cortisol spikes do not explain the evolutionary advantage of aggressively wanting to clean your garage at 2 in the morning. 85. A cleft chin is entirely caused by a bizarre quirk where the jaw muscle fails to fully connect across your face before birth. It serves totally zero structural advantage. Nobody can quite figure out why humanity aggressively continues to pass down a literal dimple in our facial meat. 86. Our ancient ancestors had massive jaws to chew raw, tough roots, so extra teeth made sense. Modern wisdom teeth are totally useless space invaders that violently ruin your entire mouth. Our current DNA still aggressively insists on installing extra bones that physically do not fit in our modern skulls. 87. Watching a skateboarder snap his leg can actually cause severe physical pain in your own body. Mirror touch synesthesia is an absolutely brutal neurological condition. Extreme empathy completely overrides basic biology and aggressively punishes an innocent bystander with phantom agony they never actually earned. 88. Staring at your own hands and feeling totally disconnected from your body is called depersonalization. It feels exactly like controlling a first-person video game character. This severe stress defense mechanism chemically unplugs your consciousness from your physical meat suit and leaves you floating in the absolute void. 89. Seeing someone aggressively scratch their arm instantly makes your own back feel insanely itchy. Contagious itching totally breaks logical sensory boundaries. Mirror neurons violently fire off in the brain, but a purely visual stimulus physically forcing your skin receptors to broadcast fake distress signals is deeply weird. 90. Recognizing a nose and eyes but being totally unable to see a cohesive face is called prosopagnosia. Severe face blindness means you could walk right past your own mother. We can point to the exact broken brain region on a scan, but cannot actually reboot the facial recognition software. 91. Shivering generates rapid muscle friction to heat up a freezing body. It makes perfect biological sense until you get a massive fever. You are literally burning up but violently shivering anyway. The brain totally resets its internal thermostat and actively tricks you into feeling cold, which is completely backwards. 92. A completely unconscious person can walk downstairs, unlock a door, and cook a full meal. Sleepwalking is a terrifying display of biological autopilot. The motor cortex executes incredibly complex precision activities perfectly, while the conscious decision-making mind is totally powered down and locked out. 93. Cracking your knuckles does not cause arthritis, but the actual popping sound is weirdly debated. Most textbooks say it is tiny gas bubbles bursting inside the joint fluid. Yet modern MRI scans suggest the noise might actually be a vacuum cavity forming out of nowhere inside your hands. 94. Falling asleep perfectly fine but violently waking up at exactly 3 in the morning every single night is incredibly common. Sleep maintenance insomnia destroys sanity. The liver is processing toxins and cortisol is shifting, but your internal alarm clock getting permanently stuck on this specific horrible schedule is brutal. 95. A sudden violent sneeze generates enough explosive force to literally crack your own ribs or totally blow out an eardrum. It is an incredibly aggressive reaction just to clear out a tiny speck of dust. The reflex constantly operates at absolute maximum destructive capacity regardless of the irritation level. 96. A tiny, totally visible hole right above the ear occurs in a small percentage of humans. The preauricular pit is heavily suspected by evolutionary biologists to be a leftover remnant of ancient fish gills. This specific bizarre aquatic mutation randomly surviving in modern human DNA is a wild anatomical Easter egg. 97. Walking into a clinic instantly spikes your blood pressure to dangerous levels, even if you feel totally calm. White coat syndrome is a subconscious physical panic attack. Your rational brain trusts the doctor, but your nervous system treats the hospital environment like an active, terrifying war zone. 98. Hand a stranger a hot coffee, and they will instantly judge you as a warmer, friendlier person. Give them an iced coffee, and you become emotionally cold. Unconscious bias tests prove basic physical temperature totally overrides complex human logic in a microsecond, hijacking your emotional judgment entirely. 99. We aggressively rub our tired eyes without a single conscious thought. Heavy pressure on the eyeballs stimulates the vagus nerve, which actively slows down your heart rate. Raw human instinct naturally knowing to execute this incredibly specific pressure. Point therapy to force the body to sleep is brilliant. 100. Bending your neck and feeling a sudden terrifying jolt of pure electricity shoot straight down your spine is known as Lermit sign. It is wildly unpredictable. Minor spinal nerve irritation does not fully explain why a simple nod occasionally generates a massive internal lightning strike without warning. Science can map every single microscopic neuron firing inside your skull, but human consciousness remains the ultimate unsolvable glitch. We have absolutely zero idea how raw electrical impulses actively create a living, breathing, thinking personality. We cannot find where you actually live inside the brain. You are just a ghost driving a meat machine. So your body is essentially running on blind luck. I want you to go to the comments right now and confess the absolute dumbest physical glitch your specific genetics force you to endure. I will be judging you. And if you want to keep learning exactly how deeply flawed humanity actually is, hit subscribe and like this video. Do it before your brain randomly forgets how to click a button.